welcome to episode number 8 of the LSR Podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all of the gaming industry. The whole gang is here, reunited, and it feels so good. We have Eric Ramsey, we have Dustin Gowker, and we have Adam Candy. We even have Dustin Gowker joining us, very special, from way over on the other side of the country. Dustin, you are in a hotel room. You are at the mercy of hotel internet right now, so we will not hold anything against you should you robot out on us at some point during this conversation.
I will attempt to not to, but I will definitely be staying in my room as the caucus is rainy and gloomy, so I will not be going anywhere.
We have a lot of fun stuff on this podcast because we are going to be able to talk to Eric and Dustin. The reason Dustin is over there on the East Coast just got done with the Big Betting on Sports conference over there, so we will get firsthand experience from both of those guys for being over there. And then Adam, you and I are here just to we're just here to bring the sexy to the podcast because we're not full of really great information here as sans the top of the show here where you're going to talk to us about all of these I-states.
Oh, I have plenty of information for you because I was working hard while those guys were going to baseball games.
This is true. But we will start out here in Florida. Dustin, Florida of all places. Florida, really? That's where we're going to start?
Yeah, I mean, this hot off the Twitter machine. I saw some stories today about the governor huddling with gaming interests in the state, including the Seminole tribe, meaning that there could be a deal afoot. The legislature is only in session for about, I think, another week, but they could easily come back if they actually have a deal that would, this would encompass all sorts of things in Florida. I won't bore you with the other stuff, but this could include sports betting, open it up to not just the Seminole tribe, allow others to do it. So, this is a pretty big deal. I don't think they would have had this meeting if there wasn't some progress. But I mean, I don't think we'll get it done like this week. That seems to be a heavy stretch, but they could easily come back for a session this summer, get it done. There's always whispers of a big gaming deal in Florida. It's been over everybody's heads. Now sports betting's in the mix, and I think it seems like there's a will to get it done. I don't know if I'd call it a favorite, but the amount of things that have been going on this week seems to point to trend positive.
Whenever we look at Florida, I mean, obviously you guys know how big of a state Florida is, but also it's worth pointing out, I mean, very rich in not only pro sports teams, but college sport teams as well. I mean, you've got the Bucks and the Dolphins, you have the Magic, you have the Heat, you have the Marlins, you have Florida State, you have Miami. I mean, there's lots and lots of places for people to put their money here. And, if we've seen any indication here with what's come out of Mississippi and over there on the East Coast, people love to bet on their local market teams here. So, Eric, whenever we kind of look here at Florida, I mean, this could be really, really, really big.
Yeah, you also think about, I know you spent some time down there, maybe at the Seminole properties at Hard Rock. Let's think of the sort of the Miami clientele they attract. There's a lot of money that flows through those retail casinos. There's obviously an appetite for sports. The Seminoles have a huge operation there. They now have some experience with sports betting in New Jersey with Hard Rock Atlantic City. So perhaps they've developed a little more of an appetite for sports betting. Yeah, it's interesting. We didn't really think this was very likely to move forward imminently. But sounds like, like Dustin said, this meeting probably wouldn't have happened unless things are coming together.
Adam, we talked about the I-states here at the top of the show. Let's talk about all of these I-states because it was a good week for sports gambling if you lived in an I-state.
There's no question that the I-states came out of, I'm going to say nowhere, maybe not completely, but pretty close to it from where we were in January to become a couple of the darlings of the sports betting landscape. Iowa sports betting, Indiana sports betting, both on their way to the governor's desk. Indiana was looking dicey for a while there. We had some hope when both chambers passed the sports betting bill a couple of weeks ago. It went to conference committee because we had different versions passed, and it was a 11th hour move that got that bill out of committee and back onto the floor for both votes in both chambers. It cleared easily. Relatively friendly bill overall. We're looking at pretty low license fees and so on. And then you look over to the great state of Iowa, And really, that's not one where people had a lot of hope at the beginning of the session, but that also is on the way to the governor. Not a guarantee on either side for a signature. Indiana looks more promising for a signature from the governor than Iowa, and Iowa also could be a little while before that comes around. There could be up to a month before that bill ultimately gets signed. So not a bad day for Iowa or Indiana. You mentioned the I states as well. Illinois held a hearing, but we are still quite a ways away from anything being settled in the land of Lincoln.
However, it at least is some positive momentum, you would say.
Overall positive momentum, yes. And when it comes to Illinois politics, when you're not hearing something negative, consider it positive.
I like that. That's a new shirt there, Dustin. We have all these new shirts that we're going to be making for the podcast, and we're going to have the store up on LSR sometime before 2022. So we need to be sure.
We keep joking about this. I'm making T-shirts. It might not actually be on the website. So if you listen to the podcast and you really want a T-shirt, my DMs are open on the Twitter machine.
Yeah.
Dustin Gauker, Gouker. My email's on there. If you want an integrity fee shirt, send me a size or a hashtag weaponized data. We're going to make these. So enough people said they want them. So we're going to do it.
I mean, I think it's a really, really good idea. I mean, this is something that we just kind of just free flowed here on the podcast, and it has turned into a huge demand on the Twitter machine. I've seen people even mocking these shirts up, Dustin.
Yeah, there's all sorts of prototypes out there. If you have a great design, maybe let me know too.
We'll get it made. Yeah, that's a good idea.
I'm just going to do these at cost. I don't think we're going to try to make money. I just want people to have the T-shirts if they want them.
I do. I love this idea. I'm so glad that we can give back to our listeners here. We will do it at cost. Eric, you live in New York. You are back in New York. You are no longer in New Jersey. Tell us about your state up there, because there is, again, when we talk about positive momentum, at least one person within the state thinks that this is maybe a coin flip.
Well, yeah. Unfortunately, it's the guy who's been saying that for the last 18 months or so and has said the same thing about other forms of gambling. We got to hear from Assemblyman Gary Pretlow, our buddy at the gaming conference in New Jersey this week. He was talking about this legislation that he's working to tweak this spring that will hopefully bring mobile betting to the great state of New York. Sounds like him and his Senate counterpart, Joseph Adabo, are working to come together on language that will appease everyone. The next version of sports betting language we see will have a $12 million license fee. It will have a statewide mobile proposal, including the tribes. Both tribes and the commercial casinos will have statewide mobile provisions throughout the state, including on tribal lands. There will almost certainly be a royalty fee / integrity fee in the bill. That was one of the popular talking points during his panel. He just overtly said he feels the need to throw the leagues a bone. That was his exact words. He's throwing them a bone. He doesn't want to lose any of the headquarters to other states. They're all headquartered there. He wants to attract other headquarters. Of course, said the PGA Tour fully supports the idea of integrity fees. But the takeaway is he thinks it's a coin flip or a slight favorite to pass. But we've been hearing that for a while. So
now, Dustin, whenever we look at this and talking about throwing the leagues a bone, you were just over at the panel. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but Chris Grove of Eilers went ahead. They just did a report and a study. And like one of the things that they found whenever they were looking at sports bettors is, shocker, the same thing that we've been, saying for well over a year and a half now, is the fact that the bone that these leagues are going to get is the fact that sports bettors become a more engaged fan. They watch longer, they spend more money, they're buying packages, they're buying merchandise, they're doing things like that. So the bone the leagues get is just this being offered, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and I think everybody's getting closer to the point of being in agreement that we shouldn't be fighting over this, and we should all be pushing together. It's not quite there yet, but yeah, I mean that's the push and pull. And we saw the conference too. Like leagues still want the integrity / royalty fees. Nobody wants to really give them that. And yeah, I think everybody understands that this is good for business for everyone. So maybe we should just move on. The royalty, the fee debate is not going to go away, and the NBA / MLB will not give up on it. But I think that at least they can live with it if it happens in the States. I mean, like a year ago, they might have said, "Oh, no integrity fees. This law is awful." But I think we're past that point at least.
Adam, as we sit here, we are talking about finish lines for some of these states and hoping things get passed here. We talked about Tennessee the last couple of weeks here on the show. Where do we sit with Tennessee today?
We sit pretty close with Tennessee. It's been a strange road to get to this point for sports betting in Tennessee. The bill that is now going to the Senate floor looks a lot different than it did when it was first introduced. It had brick and mortar casinos being able to offer sports betting. No longer does. It's online only. License fee increased by 10 times from $75,000 to $750,000. But the bill did survive the House this week. We were talking last week about some comments about sports betting addiction being compared to slavery. And now in the floor debate this week, we had one representative comparing sports betting to methamphetamine use, and that turning into a discussion that was racially charged as well. So a very strange overall course for that bill to walk, but it is going to go to the Senate floor next week. Has a chance of getting through the Senate and to Governor Bill Lee's desk. He hasn't really indicated either way what he's planning on doing. To play off what Dustin was talking about with official data, with integrity fees and so on, this is where I come to bring a little doom and gloom for the industry. Tennessee's bill does include required official data use for in-play bets. That looks like it's going to stay in the bill, and it looks like that might be the first state to codify the use of official data. And also to just veer off for a second to the state of Missouri, there's some movement on that Frankenstein bill in Missouri that includes an integrity fee, it includes a stadium upkeep fee, it includes official data. For all I know, it includes legal kicking puppies. It's been all sorts of craziness that's been thrown into that bill. And so there's a chance that some of the things that the industry has been fighting off for a while might make its way into a handful of bills that have a chance of becoming law.
Dustin, just in case you were making notes over there, I don't think legalized kicking puppies is a shirt we should make. I think that should be off the table.
I think we'll stay away from that. I don't know. MLB might like to kick puppies. So.
Yeah, I think we'll kind of throw that to the side. Eric, you mentioned when you were talking about New York, $12 million licensing fee. Adam just mentioned that the licensing fee going up 10x there in Tennessee. Now, as we were doing this podcast and we launched this thing, over a year ago when Pennsylvania came out and it was going to be $10 million to get a license there in Pennsylvania, we were like, oh my God, this is crazy. Nobody's going to do it. And then here we sit and everybody did it. So I think what we've seen here is the momentum that we've gotten from the states that have legalized it. I think the $12 million in New York, a $750K in Tennessee, I think this is all stuff that people are just going to absorb.
I do too, especially in these Tennessee, maybe a little different, but certainly New York, Illinois, Pennsylvania is the case study in that. I think it essentially just becomes a matter of casino competition. If one operator takes that plunge and would otherwise have a monopoly, pretty much everyone else has to. It's just you have to participate in the market if someone's there. So yeah, I think I don't like exorbitant tax rates and fees, but I think there is room for a little ceiling in license fees in some of these bills that have really low licensing rates.
And I also think that there's something to be said for what Eric kind of referenced. Market size is going to have a lot to do with this because the Tennessee fee is $750,000 annually. So you're going to have to keep ponying that up to compete in Tennessee, a state that doesn't have nearly the population of Pennsylvania or New York, which is talking about 12 million, or Illinois, where Governor J.B. Pritzker is asking for 10 million on the license fees. So I think that, states that decide to go high without necessarily the market where it can be made up quickly, there could be a bit more of a challenge there.
And there are ways to make these fees a little more palatable that I don't even fully grasp. Illinois has the license fee works against the tax obligation in certain ways. So there are ways to offset these huge costs as well.
Eric, some of the stuff that happens here on the podcast, a little bit behind the scenes that people don't get to see here. Do you have any scoop on exactly why Adam was 13 minutes late to begin the taping of this podcast?
Well, I would just reference the fact that we all understand that he's generally an inconsiderate person. So that's the baseline. I'd just like to read a text that I got late last night from Adam Candy. It says, I worked near the ocean, visited the dog beach, and am drinking beer at a baseball game. So I don't want to speculate why he was late, but I will just present those as the factual basis. You can draw your own conclusion.
I think Dustin can confirm. I think Dustin can confirm this. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds right. It sounds better than Secaucus. Let's put it that way.
Does it sound better than Citi Field, where you were taking in a baseball game and drinking beer earlier this week? I'm not sure it does.
No, that was awful. We watched the Phillies lose 9-0. I had said some coworkers and fellow Philly fans along with me. That was awful. Yeah, but
fortunately,
I like what you were doing better.
Fortunately, there's 162 games. So. Fortunately, there's a lot, so it won't make a big deal. Dustin, tell us about PointsBet over there.
This is kind of under the radar. PointsBet is an Australian company, so not always everybody on top of it over here in the U.S. But media outlets is reporting that they are headed toward an initial public offering that would value the company at $200 million. PointsBet has a deal, is already in New Jersey. One of the not a huge operator, but certainly, they make a measurable amount of revenue every month, and they had just signed a deal to get into Iowa as well, which is one of the states we just said would be possibly opening up to sports betting. So, there's if you want to get in on an IPO for a company that has a chance to grow in the U.S. sports betting market, that's an opportunity for sure. I've been using the New Jersey sports betting apps here. I like the PointsBet product. I still probably like some of the other ones, and especially FanDuel, better. But they have a good product. They have good. It's interesting offers. They constantly have all sorts of cool things that you can do on the app. So it started turning into commercial for PointsBet. That's not what it meant. But PointsBet, if they do an IPO, that's pretty interesting. No,
listen, I mean, we're objective here. If anything, when things are good, we'll say it's good. When things aren't bad, when things are bad, we'll say that they're bad. I mean, it's a good app. It is a good, and so far so good. I mean, I used it very sparingly when I was over there, but I mean, I keep it on my phone. I check it regularly just to kind of see what they're up to, and I still get the push notifications and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, I think it's very interesting what they have going on there, and certainly with the offer of the PointsBet, which is something we haven't really talked about, I don't think, on this podcast, which is a completely different type of wagering. They do have some kind of exclusivity within the market as well.
Yeah, I feel like I tried a PointsBet. It's a high variance thing where you can bet over and under totals. If you hit over more than over than you bet on a certain events happening, you get more money. But if you are way off on the other in the wrong direction, then you lose that much more money on your bet. You actually have to I think you have to have all the money in your account able to cover your winnings or losses if you should take a bath on a PointsBet. But yeah, it's different. It's interesting. It may or may not be for everyone, but it is at least something different in the market.
And Adam, before we move on here to talking with those guys about what they had going on over there in New Jersey, the numbers came out for March Madness in Nevada, and the numbers were pretty good.
We were bullish on Nevada, me specifically, not Trader Ramsey or Dustin. When we did our piece kind of forecasting March Madness handle, I said $350 million in Nevada easily, especially once we saw what came out of New Jersey in terms of March Madness handle. And that was absolutely blown out of the water. We set records not only for monthly handle, but for March Madness handle, $600 million overall in handle for Nevada in March. That's a record. $500 million on basketball alone. Now, it doesn't break out NCAA basketball with NBA, but you can rest safely assured that most of that $500 million wagered came from March Madness, and a lot of it in the first 4 days. And of course, there is still a little bit more money that will trickle in when it comes to Final Four games that carry over into April for Nevada. So the reports of the demise of Las Vegas and of Nevada sports betting in general in the face of the post-PASPA world are greatly exaggerated. And I think the reason in specific that we can say that this time is that the numbers from New Jersey were pretty darn good. We saw $100 million in March Madness handle in New Jersey in a month in which there was a $370 million overall total. So it's not as though there was cannibalization in any way. We're seeing the rising tide lifting all boats, and so Nevada putting up $500 million, $500 million on mostly on March Madness is wildly impressive.
Yeah, one of the things that I also really noticed, and this is something that's been kind of a trend over the last 6 months here, and kind of a shame that it took them, this long to really do it, is actual real promotion and pushing to the apps within these casinos and stuff. It was something that was not done really early on, and now you can't walk in an MGM property without there being end caps and giant things on screens about download the Play MGM app and bet on the app. And I've talked to a couple of different bookmakers here in town who said that their mobile numbers for March Madness were up nearly double digit year over year. And, I think a lot of that has to do with what we are seeing out of New Jersey. These people over here in Nevada are kind of finally waking up a little bit and saying, wow, that is a whole lot of mobile handle that they've got going on over there. Maybe we should actually push these people to apps instead of making them wait in lines here at these ridiculously long lines that happen for March Madness and whatnot. So, yeah, I think that you can certainly look to that as well as far as getting those numbers up here in Nevada.
No question, and there's just a slight danger with that, and most of the folks who are betting in Las Vegas have not seen the apps in other states, but be careful pushing them too hard toward technology that is still lagging behind, because you could frustrate some people when it comes to what's available in Nevada. I think the next step beyond the relentless promotion that we've seen on billboards and in casinos, in the casino elevator when I got on one the other day, is that the technology does need to come up to speed to keep up with the rest of the country as more people are getting to see what mobile technology can look like outside of what's currently offered in Nevada.
Speaking of frustrating your bettors too, the first thing I thought of was what a big miss this is for West Virginia. Looking at those New Jersey, 100 million was even more bullish than our projections when we got together and talked about this. And West Virginia failing to have mobile for March Madness just really is a huge, huge miss.
Yeah, and just personally, being in New Jersey, and we are at the FanDuel Sportsbook, and I'm like, why on earth would I stand in line at FanDuel Sportsbook and bet an actual book when I have the FanDuel Sportsbook app, and I have a half a dozen other apps on my phone that I can place wagers on way easier than just going and standing in line and talking to a teller. That's again, we harp on this. Nevada needs to get remote registration for mobile. It's such a pain. Even though they're pushing people to the apps, it's such a pain. It's still a pain in the butt to go to a sports book, sign up, fund an account, give them cash. They really need to update. And I think I hope the lesson is, the conference that we went to and as we move forward that people will learn that.
Yeah, I think sooner than later we'll get there. Just a huge fight coming from the local taverns and the local casino groups here with that. And, look, I get it, kind of rightfully so. They're trying to protect their business. And of course, if someone can just sit on their couch and sign up, at MGM or at Caesars, as opposed to getting in the car and driving to their local casino, which is just a couple of miles up the road. I think that I understand why they're fighting it, but I do think the battle is eventually futile. The state is just leaving so much money on the table with this that eventually, Adam, we've said this time and time again, but I do honestly believe, I think eventually they will pull their heads out of their behinds.
When it comes to the in-person registration, I want to believe what you're saying. I watched a gaming commission meeting about 4 or 5 months ago at this point, in which I watched MGM and Caesars get up and say, we want remote registration. And the forces that be, when it comes to station casinos and others, were able to fight it off, and fairly easily. So if you have heavy hitters standing up and saying, yes, we want remote, and it still didn't get done, I have to wonder if it's going to take some pain before it happens. And judging by what just happened in March and how we were extolling the numbers for Nevada, I'm not sure they're feeling the kind of pain that would force them to make the change.
All right, Eric, you and Dustin headed over to New Jersey, or you down to New Jersey, Dustin over to New Jersey to take in a conference this week. Lots of major players were there, several people that we know and within our group here presenting and things like that. I'll start with you. What was What was really the biggest topic that was going on there? Not only just in the panels, but just the scuttlebutt, even when you guys were, having a cocktail at your baseball game or whatever it might be.
I would say generally a lot of it centered around a forward, like sort of investments and technology. I'm having a hard time putting this into a concise explanation, but I sort of, late last year at G2E, a lot of the conversation was about, can we regulate sports betting? Should we regulate sports betting? A little more nuanced discussion has sort of grown, I think, over the last year. A lot more about how should we do it, who should be involved, the intricacies of sports betting. I noticed there was just a little more intricate conversation, a little more advanced than this time last year.
Dustin, what was the prevailing thought over there that you kind of came away with?
Yeah, the two things I think that I heard the most, the one that was away from the panels and the more in the background, just as I was, keeping my ears open, which I usually do. So don't say things you don't want overheard when you're at these things, because I'm listening. But I think I commented on Twitter. Was the Wire Act. People are talking about the Wire Act a lot. It's, even though it hasn't really created kind of the end of days. Like, some people thought, there's still a lot of concern. People are worried about it. People want to see a resolution of it. It's just a thing that hangs over the head of everything that we do, and people talk about it. So I heard so many people just like mention the Wire Act in passing or in conversations as they were having them on the floor of the conference. That was the one away from the panels. In the panels, integrity fees were everywhere. Like, people were just forcing it into discussions, even if their panel had nothing to do with integrity or integrity fees or any of that. So it came up, in the majority of panels I came to, and again, you're mostly around people from the gaming community, the gaming industry, who don't want to pay these things. And it's also interesting that it's still part of it's our fault, probably, or not our fault, but because we keep calling them that. That's what they're originally called when the NBA and MLB proposed them, but they're still called integrity fees, even though they want to call them royalty fees or royalties. But it dates all the way back to when a bill popped up early 2018, but even before it passed, the bill fell, had integrity fees in there, and the name stuck. And part of it's Adam Silver has also continued to say integrity fees, but when he talks about sports betting. So those were the two overarching things that I saw a lot of at the conference.
Eric, what panels or what talks did you listen to, and what was kind of like your biggest takeaway from what you listened when you were out there?
Dustin Gauker's panel, of course, was the highlight of the show for me. Now, I don't know who Dustin paid to be on a panel with the word integrity in the title of the panel, and then to have an audience member ask him about integrity fees afterwards. That was pretty spectacular. I actually really enjoyed, I mentioned real quick investments earlier. There was a panel with the 76 Capital guys, including Ryan Howard and Brian Westbrook, talking about where they see sports betting going from a consumption standpoint and where they want to put their money. I thought they were incredible to listen to, very knowledgeable about the industry. And yeah, honestly, I couldn't get to everything I wanted to. The calendar was really, really dense with things. The New Jersey panel was another highlight for me, that we had, Lesniak and David Rebuck up there kind of elbow to elbow shooting the shit. That was a lot of fun. There was no shortage of really informative and entertaining panels this week.
Dustin, obviously your panel that you did was your favorite, but outside of your panel ranking number one, what was the close number two?
Yeah, I mean, I would go more toward like what this conference is about. Like, I think the listening to the athletes talk about sports betting, like having a Philly and an Eagle. Obviously, that was cool for me to see. Like, they're up there and they're talking about sports betting. Like, they didn't get into the weeds about anything, but everything now is like, people are trying to make money and doing everything they can. Like, the floor was filled with booths. People who are pitching their platforms. It's SG OpenBet, it's IGT PlayShot, SB Tech. All of these companies are now saying, here's why you need to work with us. We have an omni-channel thing. Here's what we're doing in all these states right now. This is the money grab / land grab, where it's open days for a lot of people, and they're trying to figure out how they're going to make more and more money for their companies. And I think there's a worry for some of them that they're getting left out or left behind.
Was anybody noticeably absent?
Yeah, I mean, Eric, I can't believe Omni wasn't there, right? That was shocking. They didn't have a booth.
shocked. I believe actually they were supposed to appear on a panel, and that was also pulled from that. Yeah, didn't see them anywhere there. Curiously.
Yeah, Eric, give it for people that aren't getting the inside joke here. Just give the 90 seconds. Yeah.
Speaking of the West Virginia disappointment, MeOmni is the supplier that is responsible for the failure of the mobile platform there. One of their vendors is unable to deliver right now, so they're sort of in the bad graces of the industry, I guess. Also of note, Delaware North, their casino partner, did have a representative on a panel about sports betting technology, which I found a little bit ironic. But yeah, neither of those really have much to say about sports betting for us right now.
So Adam, we have the Katina Jet taking these guys all over the country to go to these conferences and stuff like that. Why is our podcast not a featured thing at one of these conferences? I don't understand. We give the goods. We bring the goods each and every week on this podcast. I don't understand why people are not rushing to get this podcast at one of these conferences.
Well, I think we need someone who has the kind of star power to make it happen. I mean, I'm just a local radio guy in the end, but I know someone here who had a national radio show on NFL Sundays this year. Is there anyone who has that kind of star power who could get it done for us?
Listen. I am but one man that does not hold enough clout within this industry. I mean, if Dustin Gowker can't get our podcast at one of these conferences, I don't know if anyone can.
Next time we need it. Yeah, I don't know if it's maybe not Boston when we're there, but yeah, next time around we'll get the podcast there. A lot of people are doing stand-ups and broadcasting from there. We should definitely do a podcast from there and get a booth, all that.
Sell some T-shirts.
Yeah, sell T-shirts.
I see it coming. It's going to be at ICE. We're doing it at ICE.
Guys, this is where it's at. I mean, we set up the booth under the guys that we are like doing it for the podcast, but really it's to sell the T-shirts. It's to push the merch.
I should probably get T-shirts for Boston now, right?
We're wearing them.
We are doing it. We're doing it. Eric, any final thoughts just from the trip over there? I mean, I know you'll probably have a rap piece and you'll probably let everybody know what you're thinking in written form here, but just kind of like any final thoughts for the people that weren't able to make it over there.
I will tell you the food was excellent. They did an A+ job with the catering services. I'll tell you, FanDuel hosted a great party on their rooftop at Meadowlands on Wednesday night. And as much as I give shit to Adam, he was missed there. I know he would have liked to have been there as well, but was holding down the fort for us. So we appreciate him and missed him out there in lovely Secaucus.
I'm sorry. Did I hear something about a party that you went to?
Shit. Said too much.
Interesting.
Dustin, final thoughts.
I skipped two of the parties to behave.
Really?
Yes, there was more than one party. Now he knows that as well.
Yeah, look at this.
There's three parties. Every party every night.
If there was only someone on this podcast that also liked parties, I don't know who that would be.
I don't know who that would be. I was having way too much fun watching the Tennessee legislature go to a party.
Obviously, yes, obviously.
I'm gonna miss betting. I mean, the only drawback of leaving New Jersey is that I'm not gonna be able to bet on the apps anymore. Like, it was fun to be able to just like, last time I was in New Jersey, it was in August. Only DraftKings was up. Now there's a bunch of apps. Yeah, it was cool to just experience them all in person and like actually use them. And it'll make me sad that I can no longer bet on sports on legal sites anymore.
Yes.
Until Oregon launches later this year.
Until Oregon launches a little bit later this year. Guys, we are on Stitcher and Spotify. And by the time you hear this, there will even be links to that on the podcast page on LegalSportsReport.com. I promise you someone will link to where you can go subscribe to Stitcher and Spotify there, iTunes. Get it together over there. We're still waiting and pending there, but you can certainly find us on Stitcher and Spotify. You can also find us on the Twitter machine at LSP Report, at Dustin Gowker, at Adam Candy, that is with 2 E's, no Y, and at Eric_Ramsey. I am Matt Brown, M2, if you care about any of my musings. For Eric, for Dustin, and for Adam, I'm Matt. See you guys next week.